Dictation number SV200 TNW07. Get ready. Start. Friends, I am very happy to have this opportunity of meeting you, and I am also conscious of the compliment you have been pleased to pay me by inviting me to inaugurate your conference. The press in India, particularly the editorial profession, has a great tradition built up by generations of eminent men who have influenced and shaped the political, social, economic, and cultural life of the nation. The present day editors can very well take a legitimate pride in following in the footsteps of a long line of illustrious predecessors who, by their erudition, spirit of service, and above all, indomitable courage, enriched journalism and added dignity to their calling. The contributions of editors to the attainment of independence is too well known to need reiteration. In fact, the growth of the nationalist movement and the development of the press in the country proceed hand in hand, each drawing in turn inspiration from the other. As molders of public opinion in a democratic country such as ours, you have few equals in this country. Since independence, the press in India has made rapid progress. The number of newspapers and also the total circulation has gone up considerably. A growing and discriminating readership has served to induce newspapers to diversify their contents, improve the standards of production, and enrich the quality of reporting and comment. Specialized journalism, as represented in technical journal on science, industry, films, music, fine arts, etc., is also gaining ground steadily. By far, the most remarkable feature of this encouraging development has been emergence of a strong Indian language press. Newspapers and periodicals in Hindi and regional languages are also conspicuous, not only by their numerical strength but also by the considerable influence they wield. It is really gratifying to note that among the dailies and the periodicals, two Indian language publications command the highest circulations, so to say. Also, literary journals in some of the languages, I mean regional languages, have attained a high standard of excellence. All this is no doubt a happy augury. English papers will doubtless continue to retain and extend their hold on the highly educated and relatively affluent sections of our society. For the vast masses, however, it is the language papers which must constitute the main source of information. An enlightened public opinion, which is the sine qua non for the successful functioning of a democracy in the country, can, for obvious reasons, be best promoted by a healthy, powerful, and independent Indian language press. The expansion of the press has also cast a great responsibility on those who run newspapers, particularly the editors, I should say. In reporting facts, objectivity and accuracy are the cardinal principles which must guide any journalist. Selection of facts in building up a news item is equally important in as much as suppression of material points or exaggeration of certain facts might altogether affect objectivity. If in writing up news, apart from interpretation and evaluation, one adds one's own point of view, it would lead to distortion and not faithful reporting. Indian Constitution guarantees freedom of speech and expression except for such limitations as are necessary in the interests of the security of the state or diplomatic relations. The Indian journalist I know is conspicuous of his responsibility and has acquitted himself well both in times of peace and in those of emergency. But there sometimes arise problems regional or national when passions are likely to be aroused and when emotions get the better of judgment. Minor crises appear to take up the place of major ones. It is on occasions like this we have to look at everything from the point of view of the country as a whole instead of being drawn into regional or parochial conclusions. In human affairs, unanimity often defies total achievement, but on any given problem, consensus can be achieved, and as a matter of fact, that is the essence of democracy in my view. For building up such a consensus, a completely objective picture of the issues involved is very necessary. I am referring to this aspect of the matter to lay particular stress on the method of our approach to the various problems facing the country. I am aware that your organization serves as a liaison between government and newspaper editors. It is a happy augury that this liaison continues to grow with understanding and imagination on both sides and with a willingness to see others' point of view and appreciating the difficulties of each other. I find that you have already a code of conduct. Nothing could be more desirable than the code of conduct evolved by the newspaper editors themselves. The press council is meant more for building up conventions. I am sure you will agree with me that a voluntary and self-disciplined approach as to what should be published and what should be left out is the best approach to the problem. Such a code would take Indian journalism to the highest standards. I know politics continues to be the major interest of newspaper in this country, but in the present context, I suggest that a shift of emphasis towards economic and scientific matters might be beneficial. I hope and trust you will take this suggestion of mine in the spirit in which I am giving it. There is another matter which I would like this conference consider. There is so much of talk nowadays about regionalism, linguism, and fissiparous tendencies. The press, which remains a very powerful instrument in shaping public opinion, would do well to do all it possibly can to combat this tendency. I take this opportunity to appeal to this august gathering of editors to instill in the papers in their charge a sense of urgency in these and allied matters and put their shoulders to the common task of making India self-reliant and strong within the course of the next few years. With these few observations, I have great pleasure in inaugurating this conference and wishing it all success. Stop.